Welcome. This is Brooke Klontz with the Karlie and Brooke channel, and today we're going to talk about critiquing writing. If you haven't critiqued somebody else's writing before, I highly recommend that you do that. I personally think it makes you a better writer. If you go to your state and look up different writing groups that are available in the state, a lot of times there's a nonprofit that focuses on that state, and they create what are called chapters. And each chapter has a group of writers in the area, and they all meet together and they'll pass around chapters and talk about what improvements can be made, or they'll do presentations. And I have found them very valuable. I think one time I joined 3 at once because they weren't happening frequently enough and I wanted them more. Typically they happen once a month. You can also find online writing groups. You can look at Facebook and find them. You can post on Instagram. There's beta reading hashtags that you can hook onto and to ask for beta readers, or to find work that you can beta read and improve your abilities there. So then once you've joined a writing group or you've accepted a chapter from someone, then of course you go through and you read the chapter. And what I typically do as I'm reading the chapter is I will point out maybe very obvious misspellings or really obvious grammar mistakes, but I try to keep it as minimal as possible. I try not to do any line editing typically. Although a part of me likes to line edit, I don't think that most of the time when people are looking for alpha or beta readers, they're not at the point yet where they need line edits. And a lot of times that chapter will change so much that you're really wasting your time doing a whole lot of line editing. At this stage, it's not what's important. And typically not what they care about getting feedback for. They'll hire, if they're good writers, they'll hire an editor at some point. So the things that I try and focus on are things like story structure and tension and pacing and characters and believability. If a character is doing something that's just like, that would not happen in this fantasy setting or in any world, then I'll point that out to the writer, and hopefully they will improve their writing that way. And then once I've gone through the whole chapter or the whole book and pointed out the story elements that I found important enough to point out, then I'll take a step back and I'll say, okay, what did I love about this chapter or this book? And I'll write those things down. And then I try and sandwich my critiquing or my feedback with good elements, things that they can take away that will make the criticism a little less harsh, feel a little less harsh. Sometimes if everything that you give them is criticism, they're going to walk away feeling really bad about themselves, and that's not necessarily the point. We want the criticism to be constructive. We want the writers to feel like they are good writers and that they can improve, because that's the purpose of the critique, right? Is to help that writer improve and progress. Sometimes if a chapter or book is really not up my alley, I'll try and think of something good about it anyway. Sometimes it's a little bit more of a stretch. If you are consistently hating the chapters of the group and you don't feel like you can give feedback very well, you might be in the wrong chapter, and you might need to find a group that writes more what you like. And so I would recommend finding a different group. And I think that's okay. If you don't like horror and everyone in the group loves horror and writes horror, maybe that group is not for you. I personally like horror. It's not my favorite genre, but I enjoy it and read it. I don't love nonfiction very much unless they're very specific topics. So a nonfiction group for me probably wouldn't be the best group for me to join. So I typically find online groups that are specific to the genre that I write, as well as groups that are local that I can get to know and enjoy in person, because that helps me get to know people a little bit better on a different level. So one experience I would like to share for those of you who maybe are watching this because they've never been in a critique group before, this is their first time critiquing. This is a story that you wouldn't want to stay away from, and you can learn from, and it's also funny and will make you feel better about yourself if you have been criticized before and felt like it was not constructive. So when I very first started, I sent a chapter to a short story to a beta reader who volunteered to read it, and when he sent it back to me with no edits at all, except a long note that said how much he hated it, and if I wanted somebody to put it on their refrigerator, that I had sent it to the wrong person, and that he thought it deserved to be in the garbage. This was not very helpful. It was not constructive in any way, shape, or form. I didn't learn anything from it. It didn't help me improve my story. It did not tell me what things I could do to make the story better or the chapter better. To be honest, at that point, I was at least experienced enough to laugh at it and delete it and never look at it again. And I will never send any of my chapters to that particular writer ever in my life, and I'll always remember who they are. So don't do this. Make sure that when you give somebody criticism, that it is actionable, something that they can do to make their story better, to change the story. Don't tell them that their story sucks. That is not helpful to anyone. Nobody needs that kind of criticism. Let's be nice to other writers. Let's support them, help them improve, and be their cheerleaders. Don't go around tearing people down. Nobody needs that, especially right now. So when you go into a critique, make sure that you have that perception in mind, that you are there to help the other writers. You're there to help them improve. And I think that when you give your criticism, they will feel that. They will feel they will feel what you're trying. They will feel the intention when you give your criticism and your feedback. So again, sandwich it with good things. Make sure it's actionable, that they can make those changes, and that it's not just tearing them down. And you will have a solid feedback. And even if you don't have any feedback at all, and you feel like these writers are way beyond you, that's okay. Just give the feedback that you can, and they will understand that it's your first time and that you're learning too. We've all been in the same place. We've all been at the beginning, so we all understand what that's like. I hope this is helpful to you. Please comment with your experiences in critiquing, or if it's your first time, let us know. I would love to hear about it. I love hearing about new authors, and welcome to the writing circle if that is you. Subscribe, and I hope to see you on our next video. Thanks for watching.